This all started about a week ago. Please hear me out. I need your help. I need help. Please don't write me off as crazy. I'm not. Just over a week ago, it was an average Sunday. I was talking to my girlfriend, Lucille, on our couch, watching TV, when I realized something was off. It was her eyes. Her eyes had never been green before. I always loved how her brown eyes complemented her chestnut hair and her fair skin, yet here she was, with green eyes. When I noticed, I must have made a weird face because she stopped our chat about the show we had been watching and leaned in, almost close enough to feel her breath hit my face. She gave me a small smirk and asked me, "Is everything all right? You look concerned." I closed my eyes, hoping it was some sort of visual illusion, and shook my head, and before I looked at her again, I responded swiftly, No, it's all right. It looked like your eyes were green instead of brown. It's weird. I just might have seen it wrong or something." When I finally looked up at her, she was turned away from me. I couldn't see what she was doing, but her hand was up by her face, and she had a soft chuckle before replying, "Well, obviously, you must have seen wrong. We all know my eyes are brown, right?" She chuckled a bit more, and she looked back at me with brown eyes, but it all felt off. The rest of the night was normal, but that moment lingered in the back of my mind, not that her eyes were green, as much as how odd her response was. We watched a few more episodes of the show, with Lucille's head leaned on my shoulder, arm wrapped around the back of my neck, and hand extended onto my other shoulder before we went to bed. I guess I should have found it odd, but the whole rest of the night, she did not let me leave her sight. It wasn't concerning to me at the time, because she kept trying to keep a conversation going, but honestly, it is a bit weird when I go to take a leak and I feel her eyes pierce the back of my head. As we went to bed, I stared at the ceiling, considering the events, before eventually passing out. The next few days were just as ordinary as ever. God, I wish that was the case for every day of the past week and a half. But on Friday, another weird occurrence happened. It was right before we were leaving for our date. I had placed my phone down next to her purse in the middle of the coffee table before I went to the bathroom quickly. Now, I know I had passed by my girlfriend in the foyer before I made it to the bathroom in the hallway. Now, I know this was not very gentlemanly, but I had peed with the door open, so I would have seen her pass by me. So I can confirm she didn't just walk there, but by the time I left the bathroom, there she was in the entryway of our bedroom at the opposite end of the hallway from where the foyer was. I actually jumped back a bit. She scared me so much. She laughed a little before asking once again, "Is everything alright? You look scared." I was dazed at the moment, but I quickly found my footing and voice rumbling deep in my throat. "Yeah, I might sound crazy, but you were just in the foyer." "Ha, I sound crazy saying it, but you were just there in the foyer. How the hell did you end up there?" As the words left my mouth, there was no gain in confidence, especially when she responded, "I don't know that you should be driving tonight. Got yourself in the wrong frame of mind, 'cause I was standing here when you were walking to the bathroom. I waved to you and everything. I just thought you were ignoring me, but now I understand it's because you're hallucinating. Such a better explanation. Are you okay? She was smiling during the whole sentence. At the time, I thought it was because my confusion was amusing to her, but now I think I understand that it is because her causing my confusion is amusing to her. It didn't help when I walked back into the living room to grab my phone and noticed her purse was no longer in the middle of the coffee table, but in the corner. Now, that might seem like an easy detail to mess up, and I don't mean to brag, but I have a fairly good memory. When I was in school, I wouldn't need to study a whole lot, because I would have everything remembered fairly quickly on, and I was successful because I got all A's throughout high school and even into college. Hell, I went to UCLA using my quick study methods. My point is, I know where her purse was when I left, and I know where she was when I left to the bathroom. She confused me and made me feel crazy, but I am certain what I saw, or at least I think so. She insisted on driving to the restaurant, and I agreed because at the moment I was still very confused, and if I was wrong, then it would be wise not to drive. Our car ride was filled with music, and our date was filled with normalities. Well, that was until she went to the bathroom. I need to explain what happened before she went to the bathroom so you can understand what was off after she left for the bathroom. We were sat down by our waiter, who spoke in a soft Yorkshire accent. He was charming and offered us some great options to eat, and I actually ordered one of those options. I believe it was grilled chicken with fried rice and a special restaurant sauce. But after he left with our order, Lucille got up and left to go to the bathroom. Now, I am no expert on female bathroom habits, but she was gone for a long time. She was gone so long that our food arrived. I waited a bit before my hunger pushed me to eat my dish, while hers was greeted with the cold chills of the restaurant air and the heat left the dish. Now, this is the weird part. Our waiter had looped back around to ask about the check before noticing Lucille's food had not as much as a hole in it from a fork stabbing it. He frowned, and in a soft, brummy accent he asked, "Did she leave you suddenly? I'm sorry. I'll see about getting that charge covered for you." I told him he didn't need to do that. She was just having bathroom troubles with the best poker face I had. Now, I am no Brit, but I know the difference in his accent when he sat us and took our order, and his accent when he asked me about Lucille leaving. I watched carefully where he went, and after a moment, I stood up and tailed him, but he had disappeared into the kitchen without any clear line of sight on him. I decided then and there to head towards the bathrooms, and when I approached the women's bathroom, there was this lady walking towards the bathroom, so I asked her to check on my girlfriend for me. After a few moments, she walked back out, staring darts at my face, and rudely told me, "There is no woman in there. You must be confused. Maybe she left you." I was taken aback. First of all, why does everyone assume my girlfriend would just leave me? Secondly, and more importantly, where the fuck is Lucille? I apologized. Probably shouldn't have to. The woman and headed back to my table, and there was Lucille at the table with half her meal gone. I was utterly perplexed. What was happening? I sat down, and her wide eyes and curious tone cued me into the words I didn't hear while I was chewing on the complexity of the last 30 minutes. She had asked, "Where were you?" You've been gone an awfully long time to go take a piss. I shook my head and barely answered her question before I asked a passing waiter for the check. We paid and went home, but the entire ride I sat confused. She kept hounding me about why I was gone so long, but I simply ignored it. I didn't forget about Sunday or Friday, I'll call it TV night, and restaurant night for simplicity's sake, because the next Monday was even worse. The dread I felt when I got to work, and my boss suddenly had blonde hair instead of his deep black hair, emptied my mind of past worries and filled it with the current one. I work in an office, so I didn't get to speak to my boss as he passed by, but I leaned over and asked my coworker if she saw the boss's hair, and she just shrugged her shoulders and said he probably just dyed it. I paused for a moment before I leaned back towards my desk and continued working. That whole day, I barely saw my boss, yet everything in the office was so off. And what I heard on the news when I got home did not help either. I got home before Lucille and wanted to tune out the insane thoughts that were liquefying my brain, so I turned on the TV, and before I could change the channel, the news caught my full attention. The waiter from our Friday restaurant date was missing. The exact waiter. I felt time freeze around me as my senses dulled, until the only thing that was real was my inner voice telling me to run. I wanted to get up and get away, but the spaghetti that had replaced my legs weren't very good at running. I never had felt so closed in, but I knew my girlfriend wasn't getting home for at least another hour. I took a few minutes to breathe, and then I got up and packed my stuff. I made such a mess and knocked over so many things in my rush that when I left my bedroom, I heard the items in the closet collapse and knock the door open, but I had no time to fix any mess. I packed 2 suitcases and wrote a note for my girlfriend just in case she was still the woman I had fallen in love with. My note gave away zero information, just a clear note that was written in red Sharpie that read, "I need to get away for a few days. I'll be back later." I got in my car and drove an hour away to my mom's house. She lives secluded in the woods in a small neighborhood. Lucille had only been there once. I doubt she remembered her way back. She always sucked with directions. The whole drive I was so preoccupied with the waiter being missing since our date on Friday that I almost hit this wolf, or maybe it was a coyote. I didn't notice when it was just standing in the middle of the road, staring at me, and so I had to slam on my brakes to avoid it. I waited a minute or two before it walked back into the woods. Once I made it there, I grabbed the suitcase and knocked on the door. My mom was surprised to see me, but she was elated to see me before she was worried that my visit was over relationship issues. I reassured her that it wasn't. I mean, it was, but not for the reasons she thought. If I am honest with myself and you all, I don't see my mom enough. I'm sure she's lonely sometimes. Her neighborhood doesn't have too many people her age to hang around, and my dad passed away a few years back. I miss him, but it might be good he doesn't live in a world where his son runs back home because something is tricking him, going after him. I feel so crazy. I feel insane, but I feel like something is after me. My waiter's shifting accent and disappearance, my girlfriend's behavior and eyes, and my boss's hair changing. Sorry for the rant, but it was relieving to see my mom. I just told her I missed her, and wanted to spend time with her. I didn't want her worrying about what I'm sure she'd perceive as my mental health. That whole night was so relaxing. I spent hours just talking to my mom and having fun. I felt relaxed for the first time since before I went on my date. We talked and played some card games, and she made the best tasting burger I ever had in my life. When I asked her what made the burger special, she just replied, "Well, your mom makes any burger special, of course." I laughed, but I would have loved the recipe. As we called it a night, I went to sleep in my childhood bedroom. I saw all the books on my shelf from when I was younger, and I noticed the fairy tales, and kids' books especially. Rapunzel, Odo Goes to the Beach, Little Red Riding Hood, and Hansel and Gretel. I smiled at the books and remembered my mom tucking me and my brother into bed, reading us stories until we passed out. I never got rid of those old books, even if their covers were worn down to dust. They meant so much. My parents were fervent about being parents, and it made my childhood so bright. I got in bed, and while it took me a bit to finally sleep, it was some of the best rest I had in a week. I rose from my bed the next morning, noticing I slept in. I got up and made quick work to get out of my room, and as soon as I opened the door, the aroma flavors wafted past my nose and carried me towards the kitchen. As my body moved, I deciphered the smells. The smell of savory eggs, delicious bacon, the inviting smell of blueberry waffles, and maple syrup. I stopped dead in my tracks as I smelled the syrup, and I used all my might to not collapse and break. My mom was allergic to syrup. In fact, when I was about 8, my family went to this new diner about 30 minutes away from home, and we had begun eating, not realizing they dipped their waffle batter in syrup, and my mom immediately broke out into hives and nearly died then and there. My dad rushed me, my brother, and my mom to the ER as my mom lay in the back seat. I was administering her an EpiPen. I remember every sound and smell vividly to this day, even the feeling of stabbing her thigh with a pen as air broke her past the gasps stuck in her windpipes. I was frozen in place as my mom, or whatever that was, turned the corner and greeted me. "Hey, I saw you were sleeping, so I decided to go ahead and whip up something great. I made eggs and bacon, and I even made blueberry waffles. I had to go run to the store quickly to grab some syrup, and the whole time the cashier gave me this weird look like getting syrup early in the morning was some sort of crime. Is everything alright? You look concerned." I stared blankly at my mom as I about screamed, damn near collapsed, cried, and just begged this monster to kill me now. I don't know what it wants from me, but I want this to be over with. I didn't say anything for a minute, so this wolf in sheep's clothing asked me again, "Is everything alright? You look concerned." This time, though, as the sentence left my mom's mouth, a wicked smile began to overtake her face. I stammered, and my words might have not come out exactly like this, but I said something to the tune of, I'm fine. I just realized that I left my phone in my room. Just 1 second, I'll be back in a minute." As I turned around to walk back to my room and devise a strategy to leave this place, I got 2 ideas. The first being to turn around and ask this shell of my mother, "Hey, Mom, are you going to eat with me?" She turned back, smiled, and responded, "Oh, yes, of course." I can't wait to enjoy those waffles with you. Now, my mom usually had waffles, just without syrup, so I needed to press further. Can't let that syrup you got go to waste, right? Make sure you stack the syrup on thick for my waffles, I shot back at her. Well, of course. What's a waffle without butter and some delicious syrup? She exclaimed. I walked back into my room, locked the door, pushed the bookshelf in front of it, and gathered my items. I wasn't taking both suitcases. I needed to leave quickly. Once I leaped out my bedroom window, I grabbed my phone, my wallet, and my keys and made sure I had a semblance of self before I opened the window and darted out to my car. I gave this thing too much warning when I left last time, so this time I hopped in my car and drove off based on the fact I hadn't heard from my girlfriend from when I left. Never saw the waiter and my girlfriend together after she went to the bathroom. I assume this thing only takes one body at a time, and I wanted to test this. Oddly enough, Lucille gets Tuesdays off, so she would be at home relaxing. That is, if she is still alive and not taken over by some monster. Now, I also know that I probably shouldn't have brought my phone with me, but I don't think that is how I was tracked. I think I was followed by this thing. I put the pedal to the metal and raced back home, running red lights and possibly leaving some collisions behind me. But I didn't care, because if I beat this thing home and saw my girlfriend, I could know that as long as she stayed in my line of sight, she is safe. But if she's not there, then I need to run as quickly as possible. I pulled up to the driveway and raced up to my front door. I unlocked it and was welcomed by a house of silence. My gut began sinking like water in oil. I shut the door and called out for her, but got no response. I headed to our bedroom, and it was about as disheveled as when I ran. My heart beating out of my chest, my head throbbing, shoulders tensing from stress. I began focusing on each step as I inched my feet toward the spare bedroom. I opened the door to the bedroom, and it looked about right. I opened the guest bedroom closet and gasped. There was no Lucille, but there was the skin of the waiter. No bones, no organs, no blood, no hair, just skin. The skin, other than the scalp, was all intact, just like how a normal person would have their skin positioned without organs holding it together. It was a skin suit. As I was staring at the flesh of some poor victim of being in my vicinity, I heard the door smash open. It was my girlfriend's voice. So I hid in the closet as I pulled up our doorbell camera on my phone. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't Lucille, that is for damn sure. It's still calling out for me. As I am hiding in this closet, what should I do? Someone, please help me. I am terrified, and I don't want to become a skin suit.